It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
All right. This question from Aaron. This next question from Aaron, Brian. My question is, will Social Security even be around when I'm 67 and 24 years? How can we have confidence Social Security will be around when we retire? How can we prepare if it's not? I don't do public math. So Daniel, pull out your calculator, do the math for me. If he will be 67 and 24 years, how old does that make him? Oh, don't do it in your head. You're doing public math too. This is a young guy. If you're talking to a young person, right?
I can do that math in my head.
All right,
it's
go.
43.
All right, somebody fact check him on that. All right.
Bo really, by the way, Bo
I don't
is
do
so
public math.
daggum smart. This is a guy
I
who
don't do
passed
it.
the CFA all 3 exams on his first attempt, but yet he wouldn't take 24 off of 67.
So here's the question, right? If you're a young person who's building and saving, how would you encourage them to think about Social Security, right? Whether they're 43 or maybe someone who's 23, should the consideration of Social Security affect the way that you save and the way that you think about it? Or how can you compensate if you don't believe it will?
Now, you're not
be
going to like my answer, so I love when we conflict on stuff. I'll be curious to see if you agree with me. I do think age has a huge impact on the way you kind of take your assumptions, but it will evolve. So this is going to be one of those answers where I give you my thoughts, but realize that it can change as you get older. I used to tell people it wasn't even called blogging. I even had Daniel try to go find it. I wrote a rant back in 2001. Realize my dad passed away in 2000. I was so mad about the whole death benefit thing that I wrote, and like I said, they weren't called blogs back then. I wrote a big, long thing and posted it because you could use, I'm trying to think of what the free websites you could go download, and I started posting things on how I didn't love Social Security because I felt like it took resources from my family. So I was telling everybody, really, if you were in your 20s, your 30s, or your 40s, just don't even count Social Security. But I knew, because let's face it, a lot of policy decisions are based upon politics and who votes. And they count on in elections. If you go look at participation rates by election, young people don't vote. Old people always vote. And that's not trying to read any different. It's not purple. It's not red. That's not blue. It's just a natural thing that the older demographics vote more than the younger demographics. As a result, our policymakers typically try to shelter or mitigate the people that they're scared of, which is the voters. So I always tell people, if you're 50 and greater, more than likely, government's not going to hit your stuff. They've been talking about means testing for a gazillion years. They never do it. But if you are somebody in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, I think you got to be a little nervous because you're not on their radar. The policy decision makers, the elected officials, aren't necessarily thinking about you. So if I'm somebody who's in that 20s, 30s, or 40s, I think you build all your retirement assumptions not counting on any Social Security. So but this is just me reading tea leaves, just understanding how politics works. I do think somebody who's in their 50s, maybe you only count on 50% of the benefit. I just want you to be conservative with your assumptions so that you're not counting on something that might not be there because your retirement, your financial independence is too important to be taking a chance that something's just a major key assumption is not there. Because I would feel horrible if you're like, hot diggity dog, the government says they're going to pay me this by the time I reach in my 60s. I can actually pull off of how much I'm saving because they're going to cover, 20, 30, 40% of my retirement. And then you get there and be like, wait a minute, they took it away from me. How is that possible? So that's why I'm telling you, 20s, 30s, and 40s, you should make the assumption you're on your own. 50s, I would probably cut it in half. 60s and 70s, you're probably okay unless you're a fat cat, and then they might means test it. But hopefully, if you've done what you're supposed to, you're going to be okay anyway.
Aaron, I think that the advice that I would give you is I think one of the things you have to do is you have to know your number. What's the number you're working toward? What is the goal? I mean, a lot of us think, oh, well, man, if I had $2 million today, I could retire. Well, if you don't have $2 million today, what's that number need to be for you at 67? How do I figure that out? What does that look like? And I would be very careful of building my saving strategy around pass or fail based on Social Security. What I would like to have happen is, so long as it depends on you, let Social Security be kind of the icing on the cake that, oh, maybe it's additional income, or maybe it's some sort of strategy, or maybe it's something that adds to my financial plan, but it's not the one thing that makes my financial plan work. So you asked the question, how can I prepare if I don't know if Social Security is going to be there? You got to know your number. What will it take to allow you to live the life that you want to live for the amount of time that you want to live that life, and have a high probability of being able to make it all the way to the plan, no matter what the government or the markets or taxes throw at you? If you can start to hone in on that early on, you will be amazed. Now, here's what's beautiful. When you're young, when you're a number of years away, you're playing horseshoes. You're just trying to kind of get an idea of what the number is. How do I get there? How do I get there? But then as you move through time, as you get closer and closer to financial independence, those horseshoes kind of turn into like a scalpel. Then you can be like laser precise with specifically what is my exact number, and you begin closing in and closing in and closing in and closing in until you reach financial independence. And you've got a plan in place. Hey, I know what my number is, and I'm there, and I've got it. I'm going to be solid. Early on, though, you got to start getting an idea of what that is. What am I saving for? What's the why I'm trying to accomplish?
I had two things that popped in my mind. I can't help myself. It's the end of the question. First of all, is playing horseshoes, is that a Southern thing or is that a national thing?
I didn't know. That's everywhere.
I don't know. I mean, I was just curious. And then the other thing, because I thought you would kind of take the bait. What'd you think of my age stratification based upon policymakers and other things?
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree.
Because I thought that was the part you might be like, Brian's crazy.
But even if you are someone who's older and you think there's a higher likelihood you're going to have Social Security, it should certainly show up in your financial plan. But I'll tell you, even for our clients, if we're doing like some testing and we have a client who's really nervous about retirement and really nervous about living off the dollars, we'll do like a Social Security, no Social Security scenario.
Yeah.
Or we'll do like a Social Security, no growth scenario. Like we walk through, I don't love my pass or fail hinging on the government. I want my pass or fail to hinge on the financial mutant that I was for the last 30 or 40 years while I was building up my army of dollar bills.
Bo, raise your hand if you had a horseshoe pit in your backyard growing up.
Oh, what's so funny. That's awesome. Yeah. What's awesome is
it cracked me.
You had a horseshoe pit. Like we literally didn't have the pit. We just had stakes in the ground. We were throwing on the grass. It was a different kind of upbringing. And judging by the comments, it sounds like it was a Southern thing. So.
Is it a Southern? That's what I
So for those of you who don't know,
but truthfully, it's better than you saying playing with grenades.
That's right.
The other thing.
Yeah,
that's the other analogy that people make when you're just saying, "Hey, get it close." It's either horseshoe or grenade. So at least horseshoes are positive.
I love it.